What's up, guys? My name is Elon Moose, and over the last few years, I've been able to scale my e-commerce brands to over $50 million. This year alone, we're looking towards doing $50 million on an annual basis, and over the next few years, our goal is to scale to over $100 million a year. That's actually what I do in this channel is I document a bunch of those journeys. So if you guys are interested to learn the live lessons in real time on all that, subscribe to the channel. But in any case, guys, I want to go over 5 hiring lessons that I've learned. There's a lot of things that I think I've done right, but even more things that I've done wrong. And really what I want to highlight are a lot of those things that I did wrong, where now what I understand in hindsight can really create a lot of valuable lessons for you guys to understand. So this video is going to be for really anyone. So whether you're just getting started and trying to figure out how to make those first key crucial hires, or if you're already scaling your business towards $10 million a year and want to understand some different things you can do, I'm really going to try to showcase some very valuable lessons in this video. All right, guys, let's jump right into this thing, remove the dirty box, and go from here. Okay, guys, so we got the 5 lessons, and I'm going to go over what these lessons are briefly, and then obviously we're going to break each one of these down in full detail. So I want to first paint the picture for you of how I look at things. So before actually thinking about who are we going to hire, who do we need in the business, I think the first thing that you actually have to understand is where are you spending your time in the business, and are you spending your time in the most valuable place given your current skill set? And I think not enough people take the regular time to actually look at this and review this at least quarterly, ideally even sometimes more frequent, where you're actually spending the time to look at where are you spending your time in the business, and is this the highest leverage place that you could be allocating your time, given that you are the most valuable resource in your business, assuming that you are the founder. If you're not the founder and you're a different position, then still the same applies and you should be doing this, but especially if you're the founder. So the first thing you actually have to understand is the time breakdown for you, which we're going to break down of how to go about doing that. The second thing is that based on where you're spending your time, it's then understanding from those things, what are the things that you should actually replace? Are they going to be the things that you're actually good at and driving the most value in? Or are they going to be things that maybe you're not as good at? And it's not as obvious as obviously you're probably thinking, okay, obviously I'm going to try to outsource all the things that I'm not as good at, but I'll give you the pros and cons for both of those as we go through that. Then number 3 and 4, these kind of go hand in hand together, where the first part of it is when you're hiring someone, it's important to understand systems first, which I'll explain a bit more when I go into that point. Or if you're not going to be going systems first, it's understanding hiring someone that can create a system, which we're going to break down exactly how to look at that. And then number 5 is the traditional hiring route, especially if you're trying to bring leaders in your business, is much more difficult than to go and poach someone from a company where you already know that they are having success in the given position that you're trying to hire. So I'm going to go over how I look at that, and we're going to break that down. So these are going to be the 5 core lessons. I could go over many more lessons, and if you guys want another video on it, just feel free to comment down below hiring part 2 or something along those lines once you see this video. And if there's enough value for that and you guys want that, let me know. If I see the demand, I'll make a second part to this, but we'll start with these 5. So with that being said, let's jump into point number 1, which is time breakdown for you. So let's go over a quick matrix of how you can look at this. And this is a super simple back of napkin way you can go about it. You can literally just use like a notebook and a pen and paper. And I want to give a shout out to, I believe it's Dan Martell, who has this exact formula, which I'm taking this from. So I give him a shout out where credit is due on that. So it's a very simple framework that I like to do probably on a quarterly basis at this point, sometimes monthly if I'm feeling a bit disoriented of where I'm spending my time. But this is really a great way to clear up your workload, especially if you feel lost or you feel distracted on things, or you feel like you're all over the place, not doing the right things. This is really going to be a very simple way for you to audit this. So there's 2 parts here. 1 is impact in the business. So we'll do an I for that. And then 2 is energy for you. So energy meaning, does this light you up? Is this something that you actually enjoy doing? Is this something that you want to continue to do? So these are the 2 levers that you should be looking at when you're going over tasks. Now, the next thing you should do, and if you're already documenting your workload in a calendar, then this is super easy to do, because then you can just go back to your Google Calendar if you're already doing that. Go back the last few weeks, maybe the last month if you want to get more data, and then just look at, based on all those different tasks that you've been doing on your calendar, start to map out all those different things that you're spending your time on. Now, if you're not doing that, then you can do that over the next few weeks to actually get the proper way to audit it, or you can just use your general brain of just thinking through the different things that you do. You might miss a few things, so I recommend going through, actually looking at your workload wherever you're keeping track of it. And if you're not using calendar, hopefully you're using like a notebook or something. So hopefully there's somewhere where you have that already documented so you don't have to wait. If not, and you want to be as precise as possible, then do this for a week or 2 where you document everything so that you can see where you're actually spending your time and do a time audit on it. So let's just say you're a marketing oriented founder in your business. So, some things that you might be doing is you might be doing the media buying in your company, or you might be doing actually like creative briefing, right? So we'll call that CB over here. You're doing creative briefing. Maybe another thing that you're doing is maybe you're still doing video editing, right? If you're in the early phases, maybe you're spending your time doing that. Maybe you're doing copywriting for landing pages, right? Or like different advertorials. So depending on what it is, you can start to list out all these different things. I'm just doing abbreviations because it's way too hard to actually write properly with this. And you guys will probably have a seizure if I continue to try to do that. So I'm just going to do it like this, where we can actually just see the letters. So these are the different tasks, and you can keep on going on that list to where it is. Now, the media buying, right? This was the number one thing that we said. So we can look at grading it based on a score, usually just of 1 to 10, 10 being the most impactful, 1 being the least impactful. How impactful is media buying in your business? It is something that's relatively simple to do, but still, if you're not doing media buying, your business will collapse. That's probably at the utmost important. I would even give that 10 because media buying is something that needs to be happening. But in terms of like energy for you, maybe you don't like doing the media buying. Maybe there's a lot of elements if we want to decompartmentalize the media buying aspects of like uploading a bunch of different creatives, a lot of things that take up a lot of time. That's the next thing. So actually, sorry, before I get into the energy component, really what you want to do is break this down as much as possible. So I'm doing this for this example where it's both together, but for media buying, there's different parts of media buying that you can start to break down. So maybe it's the uploading the creatives, like I just said, maybe it's the actual budget optimizations throughout the day. Maybe it's the scaling campaigns that are launched at different points based on different strategies that you have. So there's a lot of different things. A blended level that can be 10, but if you start to break it down, there's parts of it that might be lower. And then for energy for you, maybe that's only a 3. Like you don't actually enjoy doing the parts of media buying, but it is super impactful in your business. So in a case like this, and that's why I was saying before, which we'll get into the replacement ladder in just a second of this, but it's not always, if this is something that you're good at in the business and something that is giving you low energy though, and something that you're not really enjoying to do, then this is something that I still would highly recommend that you actually outsource, even though it's super important in your business. Because where I want to be in my business is things that are high impact and high energy for me. So I don't want to be in things that are super low energy that I absolutely despise doing, but that I'm good at or that are making a lot of impact in the business. Because those are things that I can find someone that lives, eats, breathes media buying that will give him as much energy in the world and still be able to reach that 10 impact and probably be able to do a better job than me at it because it doesn't give me a lot of energy. So that's the first part. Now, creative briefing, that's also something that's probably just as high as media buying. Creatives are the thing that really make things go forward. So maybe that's also a 10. But this one, on the other hand, let's say that just gives me like a 9 energy, right? So this is something that I'm going to continue to do because it gives me high energy and the impact is good. Now, video editing, the impact of this is a very replaceable type of task. This is something that a lot of people can probably do. So this might be, it is very impactful in terms of the business, but this is probably lower impact because there's a lot more volume of people that can do the video editing. And for me personally, I'm doing this and the energy level is low. So this is a priority out of everything. Like for these types of tasks where it's low impact and low energy, this is really where I would start to look at replacing that first and foremost. And we can keep on going down this list of all these, but the essence of it hopefully is now, you're understanding the point of it. Step 1 is to document all the different tasks that you're doing. Step 2 is to understand what's the impact on the business of this and what's the energy level. And if you want to even get more specific in this, you should actually do one more column that you can say like your actual skill set in that. So we'll do S for that because impact might be super high, but I might not be that good at a media buyer or something like that. So that's also another way that you can start to get more clarity and more data of a place that you should actually replace yourself from that type of task. And the things that are super obvious and easiest to replace are the things that you're going to be low on the impact, low on the energy, and if you also add your skill to it, low on that, right? So the things that are low on everything, that's obviously the things that I would recommend you then try to go and find a replacement for first and foremost. If it's high impact in the business, but low energy for you, that's probably like the second tier of things that I would try to look at. And if it's super high energy for you, but maybe less impact, that's something that you can just decide for yourself. Is that something that you just want to continue to do because you love doing it, you really enjoy doing it? I'm assuming your skill set will probably be high at that thing, even though it might not be as impactful in the business. Because at the end of the day, you're only able to do a certain amount of tasks a day regardless. So let's say it's 5 different tasks a day. Maybe if you're spreading yourself too thin, which you probably are if you're getting to 10, we'll say 10. So in between 5 to 10, right? Regardless of what that is. So at the end of it, those are going to be components that you're doing in the business with other people doing other tasks in the business. And it's left up to you to do things that, what do you think will be the highest impact in the business, but also spending your time to enjoy it, right? Because if you do all these things that might be super high impact in the business, but your energy levels are so low on doing those things, you're just going to be miserable. And it's also a mental game at the end of the day. To continue to sustain and grow, the mental aspect of this game of growing e-commerce brands or just doing business in general is actually enjoying it, right? At the end of the day, it's going to be hard as fuck. And if you don't enjoy the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, then it's just going to make the whole process miserable and you're probably likely to burn out. And the only way to actually fail in business is if you end up quitting. Burnout will be the closest thing that will actually make you quit. So that's why I want to put a lot of emphasis on energy, because it is super important. Now, the ideal place obviously are things like this, right? Like creative briefing, if you're super good at it and you're making really good ads, and like when you brief an ad, there's just like a high chance that it's going to be a winner. So your skill is super high and you love doing it. And we're saying it's a super high impact. Ideally, you can leave your day up with things like that. But that's just a blended level. And I think you can start to look at this yourself to understand that, right? This within itself creates a hiring roadmap for you. So when I early on, going back to some mistakes I made, is I would look at different companies. I would spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, just looking at the different organization structures of different companies out there and seeing all these random positions that I didn't know, but I'm like, wow, this position over here where, a creative analyst that can review all the editors before they launch an ad, that could be super beneficial to have in the business. Or it's some random position of different whatever. It could literally be anything. So the point is, like, these different positions that you start to find or you think you might need, or you think you might need it prematurely, just saying, you know what, I'm going to go and hire those different things without actually having a strategy of when to hire and what to hire. So doing this within itself not only will help you rebalance your time first and foremost, because once you see this, it should become very clear. These are the main things that I should be working on every single day in the business. The rest of the things I should try to either take out of the business altogether if it's not needed, or if it is still needed, but it's lower leverage, lower energy, try to replace those to different people as soon as humanly possible and continue to go up that ladder in terms of replacing yourself. So this really can come up with the roadmap of everything. Now, number 2 is going into the replacement ladder, which a lot of what I just said is how you would look at it. But pretty much the process here, a few different ways actually. So let's go first off of this, right? And I'll go over the 2 different ways that I would look at it primarily, right? So one is replacing your time, right? So the things around you that you need to allow you to actually be in your zone of genius, that you're doing things that you are enjoying and doing things that are high impact in the business that also ideally you have a high skill set in. So you're putting yourself in your zone of genius. So you're creating that environment to allow you to do that. Once you get to that place, then the second part of this is not only looking at that, but then looking at what does the business actually need. So like that kind of extends outside of the replacement ladder. But this could be, let's say I want to go and crack a new channel, right? Let's just say it's native ads, right? Which I'll do native over here. And the thing is, I think that can be relatively high impact, maybe not as high as like Meta, but let's just say that's an 8, because if that's cracked, that can create a lot of volume. Energy, for me, I don't know what the hell I'm doing there. Maybe it'll create good energy, but if I already have low energy on that, I'm going to say that's probably going to be low energy for me on that. And my skill is also probably like a 1 because I have no idea how to do the media buying there, but I do see a lot of potential here in terms of the actual impact that could have in the business. Let's just say that's the case. Then it's also going out and starting to determine what are expansion opportunities and what are hires that you can make within the business that can be relevant and that can make sense. So this part should only come after you have the bare necessities that are actually allowing you to be in your zone of genius to then start going and trying to hire for expansion. Maybe sometimes this can happen in parallel depending on how fast your growth is. If you're scaling, you just out of nowhere start scaling up to $1 million a month and you just got to start thinking about different ways to expand it. Maybe this has to happen in parallel, but in ideal circumstances, you have the core team members around you so that you're working on the things that you're making the most impact in the business again, having the most energy doing, and then you go into this part of the process, right? That's really how I would look at the replacement ladder at a high level, is replacing, first off, the lowest leverage things over here, first and foremost. So if I were looking at it from a marketing perspective, I would probably start going and hiring a video editor first and foremost. Once I have the video editor, it all depends obviously on how these are ranked out, but then maybe it would be like a copywriter that can start to help with different parts of it. And I can still do the creative briefing on top of that copywriter, do the research elements of that, all that kind of stuff. Bring in a media buyer that can start to manage a lot of the ad spend, all the way to the point where maybe I'm just doing creative briefing. I'm doing maybe some funnel overview. It will depend, right? But like, first off, I have the core team necessities around me that now I can do what I do best and have the team members to support it. Then the second part over here is looking at what are the expansion opportunities I have in my business and then starting to hire. Now, in the process of hiring, this is probably one of the most important things to understand, which is probably where I fucked up the most. So I've spoke about this in some of my other videos, but the talent that you bring into your business is really only as good as the systems that you're putting them on top of, right? Because you can bring in the most talented people, but when you really break down why your business is working is whether you know it or you don't, you're utilizing systems in your business to allow it to grow, right? And it might be the most undocumented, unstructured, systematic process ever, but whatever it is, if you've got to $100,000 a month, let's just call it, or $1 million a month in sales, your business is scaling, obviously, there's a lot of things that you're doing right that maybe just aren't documented that are allowing you to get there. And the thing is, you probably have a very specific way that you're doing your creatives process and making winners happen consistently to allow you to sustain that level of scale. Or maybe it's something unique towards your funnel of how you structured maybe your advertorial page. And if you're not using an advertorial page, maybe it's just the product and the offer that you put together and the way that you frame it and position it. There's a lot of different things that could be super unique towards your business. If you hire someone and, it might be someone that you bring in from a 9-figure brand, right? That's super talented, that's can show you that they're crushing it on every single metric on the things that they're doing. They have a unique way that they're going about doing their own advertising. Now, you bring that person in, there is definitely a decent chance that maybe they can get their new form of an ad to work. But the thing is, that's going to take time, testing, and resources to actually allow that to play out and allow that to work. And if you go into hiring with the intentions of, I want to just pretty much replace everything. So I want to replace my whole creatives team. So I'm going to hire X, Y, and Z person from this company, that person from this company, bring in all this top tier talent to come and work in the business and bring their expertise, because they must know exactly what they're doing because they're working at a 9-figure brand. Now, obviously, those people, maybe it's an 8-figure brand, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be only 9-figure brands, but people that you see them from a company where they seemingly will have all the knowledge and just bring them in and forgetting about the essence of what allowed your brand to get to where it is. That is the fastest way to lose momentum as quickly as possible. And that's the biggest mistake that I made early on was I'm like, all right, I'm going to hire this person from this company because that's a 9-figure brand. This one is a $50 million plus brand and they have this experience and this guy is doing this in the company. I'm going to put all these different people together because all of them have unique skill sets. And if I blend them together and put them in our business right now, it's just going to make things take off. And literally the exact opposite thing happened, because what ended up happening is our revenue started to drop. We had a bunch of overheads, a bunch of more expenses that started to come in. Our profit margins shrunk as quickly as possible. And we had to start doing some mass layoffs within a matter of months after that, when we had to even have people leave their company to come work for us, which is a really shitty feeling, when you're the business owner going through that whole lesson. And I think this is a lesson that most people that scale very quickly probably go through. But this is something, the reason and the diagnosis I would give to this is because what we didn't do and what we skipped over was the systems first aspect of it, where you have to hire people on top of the existing systems and make sure that there's a way to continue and streamline the things that were working in your business that allowed you to get there. So an example, let's say it's the creatives process, right? So we have a unique way of how we're going about doing our ads, let's just say. Let's say we have a way that we're going about directing the B-roll to get very visual types of clips, or maybe it's the way that we're doing our script writing process. Maybe it's a specific way that we're utilizing AI to get a lot of winners. Maybe it's a collaboration process that we're using. Maybe it's a way that we're reviewing the data. Maybe it's a specific way we're doing research. The possibilities are endless, but it's really about whoever is responsible for those core movers of the business. I think in general, if you're in an e-commerce business, the core movers of the marketing side of the business is going to be the media buying, the creatives, the funnel, and then we can even go a little bit into like retention, but those are going to be the core elements that are making things work. And based on those things, I think it's very important that you have a really good grasp on what are the things that your business is doing uniquely within those. For example, what these are called I have a whole video on this, by the way, so I think I have one. I'll try to link it down below, but it's a whole systems video, which will really explain this whole thing in depth of like how I look at systems. But pretty much with this, guys, is if you have the systems first when you're replacing it, and for video editing, it might be more simplistic, but let's say I'm trying to outsource our media buying process and we're doing something very specific within the ad account right now of how we're cutting ad sets, how we're scaling ad sets, how the campaigns are running. If I hire a new media buyer, I don't want them to just do everything completely different from the things that we're doing. That can literally destroy your ad account. So you have to make sure that they understand the current processes that you're currently doing to manage the ad account so that they can come in, they can continue to maintain it, and then slowly but surely start to introduce their new processes into the ad account. Same thing applies with creative strategy. You can start to test their new ways of how they do creative strategy, but you have to make sure that they know how to do the creative briefing process that you're currently doing that have been producing you winners so that they can continue to do it and make sure that part of the process continues to scale. Or if not, you have the person that's currently doing the creative process, whether that's you or a different team member, continue to do it until they have a good grasp on it. So the point is, you have to make sure that the systems keep on running. So the first piece is identifying what are the systems. And once you have those systems, make sure that there's a way that can still be running and have ideally the person that you hire continue to run it while they work and create their own new systems in the business. So hopefully that all makes sense. You should check out the video down below. I'll have it linked over there if you guys want to see the full systems breakdown on that. That's super important, which then leads to the next point over here, which is or hire to create the system itself. This is the exception to the rule, which is if you want to then go and actually hire someone that you don't have an existing function in your business. So the example I was using before is the native ads, right? So if I were to go and try to hire someone for native ads, which is a function that we don't currently have within our business right now, then the way that I would go about that is allowing them to go and create the system. So what this essentially means, if I'm saying I'm going to allow them to go and create the system, is this is not a function that's already existed in our business and it's something that's completely new that we're trying to bring in. So ideally, I'm going to go and hire someone that already has that expertise and has that experience, and then hire them to allow them to pretty much just experiment with very little interference from me or having them work on top of anything. This is where I allow them to build the foundation of this system, knowing that it's probably going to be a 2 to 3 month process until that they actually can make that work, but allowing them to experiment, do the system, and try to build something completely new. The big thing when I'm comparing these two together is that the systems first aspect is when you're trying to replace functions that you're already doing in your business. Because if you're trying to replace something that you're already doing in your business and a person has a completely different system and process of what they do and you try to bring that into your business without having your current process documented, then there's going to be a gap in time, even if they can get their new system to work, that you need to have that buffer room. Let's just call it 3 months to be safe on that, to make that work. And if it's such a crucial piece of your business like creatives or media buying or funnel where you don't give that buffer time and they start testing their new strategy without keeping the current strategy rolling and going, that's when disaster starts to happen. So that's why that's super important. Whereas if it's something new that you already know you're just investing into something, that you don't already have working in your business, you can afford to allow someone to build a new system in your business. And these two things come together to allow you to expand rapidly. Just reviewing where we're at right now is the first part about this is understanding where are you spending your time and how do you put yourself in a position where you can spend the max amount of time on the things that are highest leverage for you to be doing in the business. And then the things that are not highest leverage for you, that gives you a clear-cut roadmap of things that you should start to hire for. And then the replacement ladder aspect of it is starting to go and hire for those replacement positions, but then also starting to understand what are some other high leverage, you being the founder, of things that you can bring into the business as a growth opportunity or something that can be really good within the business. So it goes two-folded on it, which then goes directly into these points over here where you need to have systems first before you hire someone for a position that you're replacing from a function that's working in your business. But when you're hiring for something new, you can allow them to be the ones to build the system, which then leads me to leaders probably need to be poached. And that's not going to be people that you're going to find from an Upwork job post a lot of the times. Of course, all this is possible. Of course, you can find them on traditional job posts, and it does happen. And for us, it has happened with some different positions. But especially if you're looking for these higher level positions. And let's say for me, I want to put myself, maybe it's a different scenario where I just want to be doing the media buying. Everything else I want it to be fully outsourced, right? So I want to have creative strategists in place. I want to have multiple creative strategists. I want to have the whole funnel department outsourced, each piece of it. So everything within marketing, and let's also say in the back end, I want to have most of that outsourced, and I want to put myself in a position, hypothetically, where I'm just doing media buying, right? To outsource all those different positions and create leaders within creative strategy, and then within funnel directory, and then within retention, and then we can go into the whole back end side of things. Most of the times, if you want to get a really good leader, especially when you're going to 10 million and beyond that point, you're going to have to start looking for people that work at existing companies where you already know that they have the skill. The reason why I think this is super important for this part of the business is that you're just eliminating a lot of the potential risk, right? Because when you try and go to poach someone rather than just doing a job post, is if you do a traditional job post, there's two things that you really have to consider. One is, does the person actually have the skill set for the position that you're trying to bring in? And then two, are they a culture fit, which is a very corporate type of word, but culture fit really just is the vibe, right? Are they going to vibe with the different people that you're working with? Are they going to fit the energy? Are they just not nice and not someone that you want to be working with or spending time with? Very simplistic things around culture that you can break that down into. So those are the two different things that you're actually looking at with a specific person. So what's cool about the poaching route is that probably 80 to 90% of the people, if you find someone that's actively working at a company that's usually a few steps ahead of you. So if you're an 8-figure brand, you can start to look at 9-figure, low 9-figure brands that are in the space. Maybe it's some holding companies that are in the space, but you start to look for, maybe it's also agencies, right? It can be a lot of different things like that, where someone is running at a decent level position within that company. You can probably with 80% confidence assume that they have the skill set. Of course, there's going to be cases where maybe they're just very good at politics within the company. That's how they're keeping the role. But if they've kept that role for multiple years and they're currently actively managing a team or are in a higher level type of position, most likely they will have the skill needed to do the role that you're looking for, right? So then the question really just narrows down to, are they going to be a culture fit with your brand? Are they going to mesh in? And more importantly, can you actually convince them to leave their job to come and work with you and your team? That's really the bigger hurdle to make. But that's what you get when you're poaching someone, because it eliminates skill being a variable. And it's more so, are they going to be the right fit within your company? And can you give them enough reason to come and work for the company? Can you show them why working for your company is going to be the better decision for them over the long term? And a lot of the times, it's not just going to be money-based. It's going to be also giving them an upgrade in position a lot of the time. For example, it might be you bring in a creative strategist and then bring them in as the head of growth, let's just say, something like that, of the overall marketing. So you're giving them a way to upgrade their position. A lot of times it could be because they believe in the brand. They believe that you're small and they want to be there as you take off like a rocket ship. That's another way that, you know, it can make sense for people. So this whole thing within itself, this could probably be a full video. And I think I did make an unlisted video on this at one point, but I think it was too much sauce to just be putting out publicly. But if you guys really want something on this, also just like comment Poach or something like that down below, and I'll make a full video on this. Long story short, on the poaching aspect is that for the leadership positions in your business, you're probably going to have to find them at other companies. They're not just going to be aimlessly looking for jobs on different job posts. Whereas if it's lower leverage stuff where there's much more quantity of those positions, again, that could be for video editor-based graphic designers. It could be easier to find copywriters a lot of times now with AI copywriters. If it's just a base copywriting position, that's pretty outsourced. There's a lot of people that are doing it. So really it's about supply and demand. And if there's a bunch of people doing it, even if the demand is there, which for a lot of these positions, obviously you're going to have demand on all of them, but because there's so many people doing it, it's going to be easier to use more of the other job routes, right? Of like Upwork, different things like that. But when it's leadership positions, that's specifically when it really will make sense to try to recruit someone from another company to come and work with you guys. All in all, guys, on all of these different things, these are just 5 different lessons. So again, if you guys want a video where I go into much more lessons and I can go into the whole hiring process of then when you find someone, how to then actually approach them, some of the messages that you could try and go and send, the workflow that you can go, then just comment like hiring part 2 down below. Like I said, and I'll make another video. But hopefully you guys get the core essence of what I'm trying to showcase here, which is really the 5 lessons is to, first off, understand your time. Second off, understand based on your time, who should you then go replace first. A lot of the times it's going to be the lower leverage positions. And once you have that core base and that core nucleus of your team, then you could start to try to hire to expand and grow. And based on that, when you're hiring someone to replace, you should have the systems already dialed in first so that they're coming on top of an existing system. And if you're going to hire for something new, that's the case where they can bring the system, and to actually find those leadership positions and people that can grow the company, that's where you're going to want to poach. So hopefully you guys took a few lessons out of this, if not all 5, and enjoyed this video. If you guys liked it, please subscribe to this video. I'm going to be making a lot more videos just like this. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and I'll catch you again maybe next week or maybe even again this week. We'll see.